So we're going to be, I decided to call this Demystifying the Web Ministry. I was going to get rid of that overlay, but that's okay. But yeah, this is a class for local administrators in Ansteorra. A lot of this is pretty generic, so if you happen to be a web minister in another kingdom, you can still probably get a lot of benefit from this. Again, I'm Hersirkona kolfinna, current Kingdom Webminister, and let's get going. Who's the target audience for this, right? I'm looking for local web ministers, local seneschals, or web deputies who are managing websites for your group, and then just generally anybody interested in learning about WordPress. I'll do a little bit of a walkthrough on some WordPress things in this as well. Oop, stop idling. Oop. So, goal of today, goal of this little slide deck is to cover the basics of being a web minister. I'm going to give a brief overview of the administrative and reporting responsibilities. I'm going to highlight a couple of kingdom level tools that I want all web ministers to be aware of so that you can use them and advocate that your group and populace use them. And then I have here followed by an in-depth tutorial of the basics of WordPress. It's not going to be super in-depth. I don't want to just spend all time being like, here's how to work through WordPress. But I am going to cover a couple of features that I think local web ministers should be familiar with so that you can have a good chance of starting out on the right foot to do your job. Boop. General, this is kind of my goal for how I want this to go. Start out with responsibilities. Talk about kind of WordPress accounts, general login stuff. That'll be very fast. Talking about pages and posts and customizing your website. And then I'm going to mention a couple of useful plugins as we go from there. These time things are absolute estimates, but it'll take what it takes. Okay, administrative responsibilities. You're a web minister in Ansteorra. What do you have to do? Number one, this is important for everybody. You have to adhere to SCA core values and the code of conduct. I will send these slides out afterwards. These all are linked to make them easy to get to. Number two, you have to read some policies. We have the Society Webministers Handbook, the Ansteorra Webministers Handbook, and the Ansteorra Privacy Policy. The Webministers Handbook and Privacy Policy are relatively new to the kingdom. I have a note in here. They were we published in February of 2024, so both of these are less than a year old. But if you're a webminister, you need to, have already read these, ideally, and if you haven't, I'm putting the links in here so that you can read them and familiarize yourself with it. The Webministers Handbook and Privacy Policy, hopefully they both should feel pretty much like common sense. Privacy Policy is kind of a very generic document about, responsibly handling like users' data. And then the Webministers Handbook just covers pretty much a lot of the stuff I'm covering here today, but it does have more detail about Kingdom Webminister specific deputies that I have that manage different elements of our IT infrastructure and things like that. But there's a whole section on local webministers that is going to be relevant to you. Number three, you're responsible for submitting quarterly reports to the Kingdom Webminister. That's me. The quarterly reports are kind of general vibes of how are things going, what kind of things have you added, what have you changed, what kind of problems are you getting. It's a tool to help me help you. I think, I want to say it's been about a year since maybe 2 years since we've been doing quarterly reports, and I've found them pretty helpful. Hopefully they will continue to be, but they are now a requirement. Number four, if you want to work on the websites, you got to submit a form that lets me provide your warrants. Basically, the point of this is if I'm allowing people access to our bits of our IT infrastructure, I want to know who's doing it. And that little warranting form just lets me get your name, how to contact you, and then for local offices or any deputies, when did you start the office, when's your term end, and things like that so that we can manage those. If you're here today, good job, you're attending Kingdom Roundtable. And number six, this is very important, is hopefully You can respond to emails in a timely manner. For me, I try to respond to emails within 1 to 2 or 3 days. Definitely want to try and respond to things within a week. Our websites are very much our kind of central place to put information about activities, updates, things like that. And so we want to be able to keep those updated so that folks can get the right information when they need it. Quick overview of kind of what a day-to-day looks like for a local webminister. This is pretty much all the main things that you're going to run into is keeping your local officer roster up to date, updating local activity info, local event web pages, I'm talking like weekend events, attending local business meetings or planning meetings, and kind of reporting on the status of your websites to your local group. And then I included in here number 5, because we've been seeing more of this and I want to encourage it, is using the blog feature of your sites to publish announcements to the populace, and I'll talk more on that later. Officer roster. So basically each one of these things I have a little slide on them. Officer roster on your website. This is required. Let somebody in. Your local websites have to have an up-to-date roster of your officers. Most groups, not all, some of the smaller groups don't have to, but for our baronies and larger groups, they are required to publish a newsletter that also has to have an up-to-date roster. So coordinating with your chronicler and or your local seneschal can make this a lot easier. And in general, I like to recommend considering like a shared forum so that the web and chronicler can get updates on officer turnover. The implementation of what makes it easiest to keep this up to date can vary depending on groups, and it's find what works for your group. And if you find something that's like super slick, tell me so that I can tell everybody else. Keeping the officer roster up to date is also very useful. Populace members benefit from knowing who to contact about whatever department they need. And if it's easy to contact an officer, it makes it easier to communicate ideas, share problems, ask questions, and all of those things that make operations go a little smoother. Next page. Local activity information, right? We're talking guild meetings, fighter practices, business meetings. This is also required where local websites have to publish up-to-date information on your local activities. Using Google Calendar can make this way easier. If you have, for example, your seneschal's Google Calendar that has an recurring event for fighter practice, you can automatically import that into your website. You can also have that automatically update your Discord server, and you can set up even like automatic reminders and things like that. The other cool thing is I recommend centralizing on Google Calendar, and I think most groups are using it. We have a couple that haven't adopted this yet, but I love the feature that if you add your Knight Marshal, Rapier Marshal, Minister of Arts and Sciences as a guest to that Google event, you can give them the ability to edit the event, which helps reduce bottlenecks. If your local guild meeting, the time has changed, you can empower your seneschal, your webminister, and your Minister of Arts and Sciences to be able to edit the event directly, which then updates your website, Discord automatically. So it's super cool. I'm a big advocate of Google Calendar for helping manage your local activities. It's also useful if your populace members know when's happening where, they can go, they can attend. Newcomers, right, if you have this on your website, it's super useful because then they can figure out what's going on. And it shows signs of a life, which is important. Weekend events, web pages, right, this is another thing. We have to have published information about our events happening on the websites. This is not to say, if I have a group, I'm going to just pick Bradley as an example. If Bradley's having an event, and they don't have somebody who can manage the event page, we can certainly create an event off of the Kingdom site or something like that, and have Kingdom or a deputy help manage that to kind of share the workload. But it does have to be on a website and easy to find. This is also super useful, right? This should be common sense. If you can find event information, you can attend the events. Folks can plan their schedules around it. And then I also have including notes on here about specifically putting your event information on your websites. Increasingly, we're seeing our populace is diversifying the number and type of social platforms we're using, and it's absolutely unreasonable to expect any officer to post an update to every single one. We do not do that, which is why we say put it on your website, and then link it on the socials. Like that's the pattern that we want to establish. And as a local web minister, you are absolutely one of the people who can advocate for that pattern in your groups, and I highly recommend you do. Another very specific one, we know a lot of folks use Facebook, and Facebook is particularly bad. It is a victim of the algorithm, and it tends to gobble up our little updates, and it makes it really hard. Its search feature is generally not good, and so putting things on your website kind of sidesteps and avoids a lot of the victim of the algorithm problems that we see with social platforms. So remember, website first, then share to your socials. And I also am very aware, yes, it's great for me to say keep your website up to date, but if you don't know the information about the event, then you can't put it on the website. And so all of this will require collaboration with like your seneschal, event stewards. If you can attend or get notes from like event planning meetings, that can help a lot. So there's definitely some caveats about this that I understand. Which is why I recommend local web ministers, you should be attending your local business meetings. It's not technically required by Kingdom. It's not in our Ansteorra Webminister handbook, but it's a really good idea. You can write reports to your populace, listen to your populace, and it's useful because I personally will, when I was a local web minister, and then now especially as a Kingdom Web Minister, whenever I'm in meetings, I can often listen and fix things on the fly as people mention, pain points or things that they wish they had. So I found it to be extremely useful to lurk and fix things on as we go. I mentioned publishing announcements. This is absolutely something optional, but it's useful. WordPress blogs can be a great way to centralize updates and announcements for your group. The WordPress blogs come with an RSS feed, and you can do a lot of cool integrations to set up automatic cross-posting to social media sites. We have this set up off of the Kingdom site now. I know Pringlelot has it set up, and I think there's a couple of maybe one other group that's got it set up right now. But it basically means you can publish an announcement through your website that says, attention to the populace, we're doing a survey on, restaurants. That goes to your website, and then it can automatically echo out to your group's email list or Facebook or Discord or pick a platform. And I love it because it helps centralize your announcements to a single place. Well, also, I see that your message in the chat. It helps centralize your announcements to a single place, and it helps also just another kind of gives site visitors evidence of activity, right? If you've seen that a group's had, a couple of announcements come out in the last couple of weeks, then it gives an indication that something's happening in this group. They're active. And then great question in the chat. Configure install details and setting this up. So I have, let me pull it up, YouTube. On the Kingdom of Ansteorra YouTube channel, actually this is not the best way to go find it, but I'll say this. On the Kingdom of Ansteorra YouTube channel, I have 2 classes. One is on integration tools to make your job as a web minister easier, and I talk about Google Calendar, I talk about setting up these kind of cross-posting integration things, and then I have, so they're on the Kingdom YouTube, but they're also on, I'll drop this in the chat, the Webminister page. Oops, I can type Ansteorra.org. Actually, I'm going to give you that one. Ansteorra.org/training. This has sections for the Webminister classes that I'm talking about, and it also has other training courses that the Kingdom's put out over the years. So there's actually more useful stuff on there than just the web stuff. That being said, cross-post integration. I think that's the one I'm talking about. Let me pull this page up to make sure. Did I not put them on there? Okay. I didn't put them on there. I'll add them. All right, hang on. Let me just take a note. This is important. Add web to training. Okay, so I can probably do that this afternoon, but that's where they are. But other than that, Kingdom of Ansteorra on YouTube is where you're going to find those. But yeah, so if you watch those, and I do, it's not like absolutely super detailed. There's probably details that I've left out. So if you're wanting to go down this route and have questions or want to do anything, shoot me an email and we can find a time to like do a video call and walk you through it. But it's pretty easy to set up. For the automatic cross-posting, my preferred tool currently is Zapier, Zapier. And I like it because it has a free tier that is sufficient to like meet our usage needs, and so and it integrates with a ton of tools, so it's like does what we need and is free. Any other questions about the cross posting before I go and move forward? Cool. Kingdom level tools that I want to highlight. This should be a single page. A lot of these are kind of relatively new within the last like year or so. Some of them year or two, but these are definitely Kingdom tools that you should be aware of, that you can link on your site, share with your group. First is our Ansteorra document library. This is a kind of a searchable library of documents. Let me pull this up. Ansteorra.org library. Let's see, can you all see that? Let me change my screen share real quick. This guy. Ansteorra library, it has a list of documents, brief description of each, what kind of type it is, and what formatting chain it's in. So for example, if I want to find those Webminister handbooks that I typed, I can use this little search bar, and then there we go. Ansteorra Web Handbook, Society Handbook, and Privacy Policy are all in there. And then there's pretty much any other handbooks, forms, exchequer forms, things like that. This is something I maintain at the Kingdom level to try and make it easy to centralize all of our forms so that they're not all getting lost in all our various websites. Next one is the Ansteorra directory. This is also pretty new, but if we go to officers, all officers, right at the top. This is a collaboration between me and our Kingdom Chronicler to try and centralize our officer roster. This is a kind of in its initial kind of version 1 rollout, but it should have most of our officers in there. You can see there's a lot of, sort by org, department, and it's got searches across every column. So if I search, prints, I'll get any row that has that term in there. It is as up to date as I can get information. So right now there's a Google form you can just use to submit to update the regnum. This regnum automatically fills in here, and our Kingdom Chronicler also uses it to keep the Black Star up to date. So it goes to both of us at the same time, which is cool. Next one, Ansteorra.org/groups. I've done a fair amount recently to try and make this page useful, so I want to highlight just a couple of things. Come on, Internet. You got this. Here we go. Kingdom socials right up the top. But to highlight on here, we've got links on here for socials and calendars as I am aware of them. But as new thing that's pretty cool is we also now have these calendars of activities on the groups page. We're having some slow internet today. Come on. You can do it. Let me see if another one loads. There we go. Here's one. You can see calendar activities in the central region. What this is basically for any of the groups that have a Google Calendar to manage your activities, which I highly recommend. If you're not on it, start adopting it. I group them all together and throw them all on one calendar. So if your folks really want to know, like, when are all the heavy fighter practices in my region, this is where to go. So hopefully it's useful. We've had a few folks ask for it, which I think is pretty cool. And then also we have our zip code lookup. This auto pulls from the zip code spreadsheet that our Kingdom Seneschal uses. So again, it says up to date as the Kingdom Seneschal can keep it. Next one, welcome dashboard, ansteorra.org/welcome. I want to point this out because it can be useful if you're doing demos. It's just there's 6 tiles. You know, quick buttons can be useful if you're running demos or want to give kind of a landing page to newcomers. It's got links to groups, our FAQ, upcoming events, and then some socials and the link tree, which I need to check with our social media officer. I believe that's up to date, but we can check. Next one, there's a few places to find this. Read Gazette. I may actually change this so it says announcements. Under social, you can find announcements, and then on the home page, there's a button kind of right near the front that's announcements. And this is just a list of any of the I was mentioning those blog posts, any Kingdom announcements that's happened recently. Every single one of them is going to show up here. So if you missed one and your group needs to know what happened recently at the Kingdom level, this is where to go. Our current crown has been really, really good about using this to publish announcements to the Kingdom, and the PNP are very excited about it as well. So I expect this to continue to be used pretty heavily and increasingly so, which makes me excited because it means we lose fewer things in Facebook. And then last one, we have these tools, the FAQ and the glossary. These are, let's pull up FAQ. Glossary. These are projects that I've been working on for a while to try and, have frequently asked questions and a glossary. These are kind of loosely organized by category in the frequently asked questions. But so, for example, if I click on going to an event, it's basically just got expandable things for common questions we see about events, and then little blurbs that try to answer them. These are very dynamic and absolutely willing to get suggestions and feedback on it. Uh-oh, where's my glossary? Okay, I lost the terminology. I'll find it later. But basically the glossary is a spreadsheet of terms, like crown, coronet, baron, baroness, and then definitions that I've been keeping up. But I have to fix the link on that. So let me make a note. So that one's not exciting today, but it will be once I fix it. Next one over. All right. Now that we know what a webminister has to do, let's talk about that very last one, of keeping your website up to date. I'm going to start first off by talking about WordPress and how do you get an account. So in Ansteorra, we currently use SiteGround to host a multi-site instance of WordPress. Now, there are a lot of different ways that you can get access to WordPress as your website. You can go through WordPress.com. You can go through WordPress.org. Those are 2 separate hosted instances that are running the WordPress software. But we, instead of going through those existing domains, host our own so that we can have pretty main domain name that is ansteorra.org. So we pay for that. Multi-site means that we have our main site, ansteorra.org, as well as subdomains. These take the format of ansteorra.org / whatever the subdomain name is. A couple of examples could be ansteorra.org/demos, ansteorra.org/hellsgate, ansteorra.org/wiki. In general, I refer to all of these, the main domains, subdomains, as sites. Just general information about these. Users who have the administrator role on a site can add new users to a site, thus provisioning them an account. Since we're hosting the domains for Ansteorra websites, administrators have to provision accounts. Just in the general note, there's a role called a super admin. These super admins are people, users who have admin access to every site within our multi-site instance. Specific ones would be Kingdom Webminister and the Deputy Kingdom Webminister. So to get access to one of our websites, so say you've taken on the job of the local webminister and you need to be able to log into the site and make changes. The first thing you got to do is fill out the warranting form. Remember, we gotta be warranted. Filling out this form does two things, because one, it gets your information to the Kingdom Webminister so you can get in the warranting roster. It also gives the Kingdom Webminister the information they need to provision your account. As far as like, who do you then ask to say, hey, I filled out the warranting form, who do I ask to get me an account? You can either email the admin, of your site and request an account. For local sites, this is usually the outgoing webminister, but the Kingdom Webminister, as a super admin, is always an option to reach out because they have admin access to all of the sites. So I can always create you an account on any of our subdomains if you need them. And then I wanted to include this note about how our accounts are provisioned. Our current convention is that users are provisioned accounts with the format first initial, last name of your mundane name. And this account is attached to a personal email address. This accomplishes a few things. One, it makes sure that each person only has one email and password for our WordPress domain. Sometimes gets suggested, it's like, oh, why don't you provision accounts based on our officer emails? Well, officer emails rotate people often, which by itself is not necessarily a problem. However, our volunteers who work on the websites are often more than just the local webminister who has an official email. And often our volunteers edit or have access to multiple sites. Folks who like helping out with websites will often say, hey, I'll help out, if you have a couple of local groups that need a hand, grant me access to those. And having a single login for that individual means that I can say this individual has access to these 5 sites. And it's very easy for admins to then identify who has the accounts and to update access, revoke access, whatever, because the individual is not hidden behind the generic officer name. So that's the current convention. If you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. But that's how we're doing it currently. As the person provisioning the accounts, I like this system. Okay, so getting an account, once you have it, you log into, for any of our sites, you go to ansteorra.org / whatever the subdomain is, / WP-admin. That WP admin is basically, you just tack that on to the end of whatever site you're trying to get into. And if you have access to the site, you can use your email or username and password to log in. The first thing you got to do when you get your account is go to your user profile and change your display name to your SCA name. I've included a little screenshot here. On your profile, there will be an option to set your nickname, which is a required thing, and then you can choose what to display your name publicly as. This is important because administrators like me can always see the username attached to you, but everybody else, the thousands of people in the kingdom that view our websites on the daily, they will see your display name. And so this is a really easy way to make sure that your name is showing up how you want it and that it's your SCA name in its current state. Real quick, before I continue forward, I'm going to do a quick screen share of an example of our dashboard. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about the dashboard here in a second, but I just want to show you that I am at ansteorra.org staging / WP admin. This staging site is a subdomain that I use for testing, validating, themes and changes and stuff whenever I have to do stuff. So it's kind of like a sandbox type of site. From that, there's an option on the dashboard to go to users. You can see mine. And if I go to edit that user, I get to see my personal options, color scheme, things like that. I get to choose, what is my name displaying as, and what is my public display name. And so that's the setting that I'm recommending that you change. From generally anywhere on the dashboard, if you hover over your name in the top right corner, assuming you're on a desktop, you can click Edit Profile, and it'll take you to this same page. So that's getting an account. Fill out a form. Tell an admin that you need an account. Then either if it's me or the current webminister, they will create an account for you as a user, and you can log in and go. So how does that go work? So we're going to start by talking about WordPress, pages, and posts. WordPress sites are made up of a collection of pages and posts that are displayed in what's called a theme. The pages and posts are created basically the same way, edited the same way, published in the same way, and any given page or any given post is composed of what WordPress calls blocks. And these blocks have a type. So it could be a heading, like a title. It could be a paragraph, lists, columns, accordions. If you've edited things in Microsoft Word, Google Docs, a lot of the same kind of processes that you'd go through to add in things in a document can apply here. Posts are different because they have an additional little feature, is that posts are available via the WordPress blog feature. WordPress, its origins is in, allowing people to create blogs. And so they have a lot of features built in that allow you to say, here's my blog posts, and they group them together and sort them by dates and time. And they have a lot of features related to that. So that blog component is really the distinguishing feature between pages and posts. So another tab change, I'm going to do a little bit of a demo. I'm going to do a general dashboard overview. I'm going to talk about the posts plugin. I'm going to talk about the pages plugin. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a demo for editing one of those. So let's go back over here. I'm going to use the Bringolad website as my demo page. I play locally. I live in Bringolad, so this one is familiar to me. But this can apply to any site that we go to. So again, ansteorra.org/Bringolad is the address for the site. If I append WP admin to the URL, or if I click on this dashboard icon or just the name of the group, that will take me to the admin dashboard. Now, generally on this dashboard, on the left side will be plugins or tooling that you have access to use. On the daily, you'll probably use a handful of these, and those are the ones that I'm going to talk about during this. At the top, you can have, so I'm Kingdom Webminister, so I'm the point of contact on a lot of different sites, so my list here is very long. If you're a local webminister, you'll likely just have your group's website up here at the top. And then there's some other buttons up here that are not relevant for the purposes, for the context of this presentation. So let's talk about the posts plugin. From the dashboard, click on the one that says posts, and this will give you a listing of all of the posts that are currently and their status for your site. So it'll have the title, author, categories, the date published, and I think by default they sort by date reversed, so the newest one is at the top. And any one of these, you can see who the author is. Again, this is grabbing that display name. So these are showing up all as different people's names. You have options to bulk edit, bulk move to trash. You can filter dates and categories. And then you have the option to do like a quick edit, which allows you to edit kind of the overall metadata for the post. This can be useful if you're using categories, if you need to send something to stick it back into a draft format, or if you need to change the author. So say, for example, if your webminister rotates out and you need to transfer ownership to the incoming webminister, you can search for posts by a specific author, do a bulk edit, and then change the author to all of those all at once. So that's kind of cool. Plugin, that's basically kind of the interface for the plugin. Pages, the Pages plugin looks a little similar. So if I click on that, get same sort of thing. You get a listing of the pages and their titles in the site. These are sorted alphabetically but it preserves nesting. So if you have, you know, about, and under that, there we have this page, baronial awards. The about page is the parent page of that baronial awards, and so it allows you to have kind of a file structure. It mimics kind of a file folder structure, and so that's how these are organized. Similar sort of thing, you can see the author, when it was published. You have options to quick edit the metadata for the page, and you can, you know, search on title, author name, things like that to see what's going on there. That's basically the interface for how to find your pages, find your posts. So let's talk about editing one. Let's go to our home page. So there's two different ways to get to edit a page or a post. On this site, on the home page, I know is a page. If I click over here to announcements and click on this latest one, which was an update on park lighting, I know that this is a post. Viewing it, there's not really a whole lot that distinguishes the two, except that posts typically will have the publish date, and then they'll display categories and tags at the bottom. And if I go back to our home page, you can see that publish date and the tags and categories don't appear for pages. So that's just kind of a little way if you're trying to be like, is this a post? Is this a page? Those are things that you can look for, but editing them is the same. If you're on a page, up at the top, you'll see a little button that says Edit Page. If you're on a post, let me go back. A little button on the top will say Edit Post. That's another way to figure out which one you're looking at. So let's go home and talk about the editor. So whenever you edit a page or a post in WordPress, you're going to get, my preference is to edit in a desktop browser. I think the interface is the easiest. However, this also works on mobile, but it's just very small. So, you know, if you're in a pinch, you can log in from your phone if you need to, but I prefer to do this on a desktop. But the basic layout kind of looks like this, is you'll see the content of your page minus all of the look and feel pretty stuff that was coming from kind of the appearance of the site. So at the top of this, I have something that says home. I have, you can see there's some buttons in here, some text, some images. But what's really the important thing here is these buttons here on the top right. There's an option to preview. If I click on that, I get the option to see preview desktop view, tablet, and mobile. So if I want to say, how does this look on a phone? Go, okay, cool. That doesn't look terrible. Tablet size? Yeah, also cool. Desktop, cool. And then I can also say, preview this bad boy in a new tab, and then it gives me a preview of the page. Other useful thing up at the top right, the big blue button that says either update or publish. And then over here, this is the settings. This is our page and block settings, where you can control for the page overall settings. Who's the author? What's the URL? Do you allow comments? Is there custom code in there? What is a sidebar layout? And other things like that. Generally, for local sites, you probably won't have to mess with page settings, but it's good to know that they're there. Block settings, right? No blocks selected. What does that mean? So these pages are composed of blocks. So now that I have this settings window open, when I click on in between these buttons, I now get a little editor panel for the block, as well as information here in the block editor. If I click on a different block of text, I can see that this block type is a text advanced. If I click on the title, I go back to block, no top block selected, so that must be a default thing. If I click on this little line, I've got a separator block. Clicking in here, highlight this thing, it's something called a row layout. It's got all sorts of options for customizing. And then this last one here at the bottom, it looks like this block type is an accordion. Every now and then WordPress will fail to load a block. I don't know if you noticed just there, I did it kind of quick. These were grayed out and it said, something failed to load in this block. Do you want to attempt block recovery? And it just prompts WordPress to like reload it, and it will generally then pull it out. So accordions are kind of cool. They expand and collapse. So editing a page or a post, you simply say, what do I want it to look like? From any position. So that's what those things are, but how do you add them? Sometimes if you have space in between things, WordPress will give you a prompt that says type to choose a block. So if you select in here, you can see right now it thinks this is a paragraph, but I can convert this to other things if I click on the block type. I can also use this plus sign up at the top to toggle the block inserter. This is where you can search through all of the available block types. This can be really cool if you need some inspiration for how you want to lay stuff out. Some items will be indicated as Pro. We do not pay for WordPress Pro, so these will be unavailable. But you can look at all sorts of block types: countdowns, count ups, icons, images, normal block types like paragraphs, lists, tables, and so you can choose your block type. So let me just click on one here, as I'm going to click on table. When I do that, I get a new block inside my page, and it's going to prompt you to customize it. And then the block editor here on the right, it'll show you what settings you have that you can play with. Usually it's some sort of like default setting and styling options. A lot of those are pretty common. If I want to remove a block, you can click on it and then just delete that. Once you're satisfied with how your page looks or your post, you like how it fits in your different previews, preview it in a new tab, you like how that looks, you can then click the update button to publish those changes and push them live. I point that out because it's very important for you to use the preview feature to make sure that something that looks really, really great on desktop isn't a nightmare on mobile, and vice versa. You should always keep in mind the user experience for these things, so previewing is super important. So that's the basics of posts and pages and editing posts and pages. Next, I'm going to talk about appearance and customization. So the pages and the posts, that allows you to edit the individual blocks on your pages. But there's a lot more to a site than just the text. Appearance and customize is how you make your site look and feel good. Page and post editors let you customize the individual blocks on a page, but the overall look and feel is what we're talking about now. There are 3 different ways to get to where you can customize this, and I'll do a demo for each of these. From your dashboard, you can click on Appearance. You can go Appearance Customize, and then you can also, from any page at the top, just click on Customize at the very top. In general, for Ansteorra, we have many themes available for you to use, but Generate Press is one theme where we have access to the paid features. So I generally recommend doing that one because it is the most customizable. However, if you don't want to mess with doing all that customization, you can choose other themes that give you fewer options, which can make for a faster customizing experience. All right, so let's go back to our sample page. I don't need to save those changes. So again, I'm back on my Bring a Lot site. So let's look at what are we seeing here when we view this site. We see that there is a header up at the top that has the site name. There appears to be a menu with drop-down items. There's a search bar. There looks to be the main content of the page in the body of the page, and then it looks like there are 2 widgets on the side that give people links to announcements and a calendar. Then if I scroll down to the bottom, I can see that there's a couple of links here at the bottom, as well as a little button that takes me up to the top. Each one of those features are things that come up, are a byproduct of setting the appearance and the customization for your site. So first I'm going to talk about appearance. So I'm going to go to my dashboard. Look here on the left, we see something for appearance, and there's a lot of things that we can customize. Our themes, there's the option for customize, which I'll talk about in a second, widgets, menus, and then a few other, these 3 not relevant for today, so I'm not going to talk about them. The main ones that you're going to have to deal with are menus, widgets, and themes, and customize. So just real quick, looking through each of these, if we look at our menus, These are, you guessed it, the menus that are in use on your site. WordPress allows you to build multiple different menus, and you can name them. So for right now, I'm on the main navigation, but this site also has menus for SCA links. So let's select that, see what's what. Yep, Ansteorra, SCA, very simple. And then another one for social links. So let's look at that. Facebook, Discord, Twitter, Meetup. Nice. So these are custom menus. And editing these is pretty straightforward, especially from this view, because select. You can literally drag things around to rearrange things in the menu. And this mimics kind of the indentation here mimics the drop down. You know, if you click on home, what are the drop down options? It's these three. And so you can see there's a lot going on in this menu, sub menus and things like that. And then once you click save, those changes will be published live. Next thing, working our way up, widgets. Yeah, not saving changes. Welcome back to widgets. So this is where you can customize the widgets that are displayed on your site. So like I said before, when we were viewing the page, on the right side of the page, we saw what looked like 2 text widgets, and that we can see that right here. There's a thing for announcements and then a paragraph for the calendar. And this is where those things can be customized. Similarly, this site is using GeneratePress, which gives you a lot of options for customization. Top bar, footer bar. This has up to 5 different footer widgets, which would show up kind of one on top of the other. Right and left sidebars, as well as the header. I'm going to skip customize because I want to talk about themes. So themes is where you choose the theme for your site. As I said, we have several that you can use that are available for Ansteorra. You can look at theme details, do a live preview where it will take the posts and pages for your site, stick them into the theme so you can get a sense for what it's going to look like. There are a few themes in here that I want to point out that you should not use. One is GeneratePress Child Ansteorra. That's a custom theme that we use for our Kingdom Officer sites, like our Seneschal page, Hospitaller, that pulls in some of the theme elements from the main domain and applies them to those sites. So that's what keeps our officer sites looking similar to the main one, so that there's not a big, disconnect in the look and feel when you go through those kingdom level sites. Same thing, we have themes in here for the Ansteorra main theme. We use that only for the main site, so don't use that for your site. All right, last thing I want to talk about. So 2 ways to get to customize. One is appearance, customize, or if you go to your site at the top, there's always going to be a button with a little paintbrush next to it for customize. Customize is basically an editor overlay that lets you customize your site. All the things that we just looked at, menus, widgets, you can customize those here and basically get a live preview before you publish them. Just like when you're editing pages and posts, WordPress lets you check out what it's going to look like on a tablet-sized display as well as on a mobile-sized display. It is so important that you use these preview options when you're editing pages because it can save you a lot of trouble if you make sure it looks good first, instead of waiting for folks to view the page, then reach out to you going, this doesn't display right. And then you have to go back and fix it. But navigating customize is pretty straightforward. For elements that have some things will show up on the page where you can click edit, and what that'll do is it'll basically jump you on the left to whatever submenu of over here correlates to that. You can see if I wanted to, I could change this away from main navigation and change it to something else. I'm not going to do that today, though. So big things. And so generally, especially if you're kind of new to this and you're new to a site, I recommend actually just clicking through the entirety of the menu here. What is your site identity? Click into that, read it. And so this has our site title, tagline. Right now, that tagline is hidden, but I could always uncheck it. And then now that tagline shows up. You can set the site logos, featured images, the little image that shows up in the web browser. You can set that here too. Layout, typography, colors, different themes allow you different levels of control for customizing these elements. For example, if I go to the sidebars, this can be confusing, but basically it's asking, what's your general sidebar layout? So do you want it to be content then sidebar, sidebar then content, sidebar content sidebar, sidebar sidebar content? And so this allows you to literally rearrange the elements of your site so that it looks the way you want it to look. Those are layout options. Typography, right? This is your text, font size, you know, what do you want your level 1 headings to look like, level 2 headings, level 3. If you want to get down into those little details to customize your site, you can. Same thing with colors. You can customize to a very fine degree. That, again, this is the Generate Press theme. With other themes, that you may not have as many options. And then for any one of these, you can play with it, see if you like your changes, and then once you've previewed, you've edited, you've viewed, then you can publish it, and those changes will go live. A lot of power behind the customize menu, so hopefully we can all be familiar with it. Appearance, yes. So what are the plugins that you're going to need to use the most? Like I mentioned on the dashboard, there's more plugins in there than you'll normally need as a local webminister or as a site editor. But these 4, TablePress, Calendars, Redirection, and FormCraft, are the ones that you're probably going to use the most. WordPress, useful plugins. Just to throw the definition here, plugins are a piece of software that adds functionality to our domains. The Kingdom Webminister, that's me right now, can add a new plugin at the site level, so the very top level, and can enable or disable plugins for individual sites or for all of our sites. And so we don't typically add new plugins very often. The ones that we have right now that are enabled on sites seem to be covering our needs, but it does happen that somebody will find a plugin that's just like super useful and we want to add that functionality to our sites. And so getting that added consists of emailing Kingdom Webminister and saying, here's the plugin, here's the documentation, let's talk about, you know, what's this going to do for us, and, you know, decide then if we want to add it. So let's do a little demo. Whoop. TablePress, Calendars, Redirection, FormCraft. All right, so I don't actually want to change the Springled site, so I'm just going to exit out of that. So from the dashboard, TablePress. Well, let's do these top to bottom. No, I'll do them in order. TablePress. So TablePress is a plugin that lets you add tables. So when in the page or post editor, you have the option to insert a table block into your site, which is just going to be pretty basic. It'll have rows, it'll have columns. You can add your text and stuff in there, but it's otherwise pretty minimal as far as functionality. TablePress expands that. TablePress, hide. This is when you click on the plugin. This is what the dashboard looks like. Now, the Bringelad site has a lot of tables. You can see I created a bunch of these that we use to display our different awards for our local OP. There's some old tables for jargon. When we now actually have kingdom level jargon, and so these were the original tables when I was developing at the baronial level. But basically, you can see these are all the different tables that are in the database for this site. So if I click on, what do I want to click on? Let's click on our holders of the cross flurry. Let's do preview. So preview it, you can see I get kind of this default table, headers, columns, and the content. So pretty straightforward. This is our table for our OP entries, so nice. But how did we make this? So cross flurry, let's go to edit. At the top, we have our options. You can look at all tables, add a new, import, export, and look at plugin options. So for this specific table, it has an ID, a table name, table description, and then the table itself, the table content. So if I scroll down, this should be the same things that I see. Now, this plugin, this is where it becomes useful. It gives you options to manipulate the tables. You can select columns and duplicate them. You can hide and show columns. You can customize things about the header and footer, row, hover highlighting colors, alternating the color of rows, things like that. And then you can have also additional features for site visitors, and then you can save all those changes. When you view a table, let's go to Bringblad, Words, where's that cross flurry? Boop. So if I view this page, you can see here's this table, and then these are where the really cool thing is the TablePress gives you the ability to search your tables. It'll search through any of the fields for a term. So if I search GOT, I can see GOT, NAD, does that, right? And so you can quickly search to say, hey, it's like, what is this entry in this table? You can also change how many entries you want to see at a time. By default, it's 10, and it gives you the little previous next buttons. But this is pretty cool, is you can also just say, show me all of them. And you can see the whole thing on one page, which is really nice. Embedding TablePress tables is a little bit different than your normal like editing, because every TablePress table is given a shortcode associated with it. So shortcode is a WordPress code that is used to reference things that are saved in the database for your site. So tables, calendars, things like that can be assigned a shortcode. So it's basically like a quick reference to say, go grab that thing and put it in here. So if I edit this page that we know has a TablePress table on it, I will see that that table actually doesn't show up in the editor view. Instead, what I see is a shortcode block that just has the shortcode for that table. And so when you're editing pages, it also kind of declutters things because you don't have to worry about editing the individual fields for your table, because that's done in the plugin. All right, so let's get out of there, leave. The other really cool thing about TablePress, and this is where it becomes very powerful, is TablePress allows you to import tables from a URL. You can see here, I've used this a lot in the past. These are URLs to Google Spreadsheets. And if you stick around for my next class, I'll talk a little bit more about this. But you can import tables from a file, from a URL. URLs ends up being the most useful because it also has this plugin, auto import configuration. And so you can say for any one of these tables on some schedule, every 15 minutes, it's actually way too often. You say do once daily, twice daily, whatever. Check, expect to get this data format from this URL and import it into your site, which means if you have, say, a spreadsheet with your Baronial OP, you can import that into your website through this plugin. And if your officers update that spreadsheet, it'll automatically update on the website, which means you as the web minister don't have to worry about managing the names and dates for awards or for other things like schedules or staff lists or things like that. And so this can be super powerful. Let's see, what's the next one that I'm going to do? Next one is calendars. So calendar plugin, here we go. Allows you, kind of like we're importing tables, to import calendars. If I click on, where's the main one? Calendar of activities, Bringblad calendar of activities. Point out a few details here. Come on. There we go. Calendar of activities, they all have a URL that gets generated for them. There's a little bit of HTML coding. Well, it's HTML coding plus like plugin specific thing. Like this is a plugin specific command to grab, for example, the title, the date, the location for an event, description. These are all things that this specific plugin gives you access to. If I scroll down, you can see at the bottom here, this is also assigned a shortcode. So if I want to embed this in a page, I just drop that shortcode on my page. But the cool thing about this plugin is it's specifically designed to pull in from a Google Calendar. Most local groups, and if you're not doing this, I recommend you do, will host their group events off of a Google Calendar, usually either the Webminister or the Seneschal. Those are the officers that typically have the most responsibility for keeping activities either up to date or making, approving them, making them official. So that works pretty well. Bringelod, you can see the calendar IDs pulling from their Webminister's Google Calendar. This plugin, once you set which calendar it is, you can customize appearance, color. You can customize, how many events is this going to show, and then other things even of, what format do you want the times to show up, the dates, what time zone, things like that. That's cool. But another type of calendar that you can create, let's see if they have one in here. Doesn't look like it. So let me just click on a random one. Is that this plugin, so say I have imported a calendar from a Google Calendar. It also lets you get events from a grouped calendar. What does that mean? So now I've seen this has changed, and it says get calendars from other calendars. So if you have a calendar, say for your local group, and you want to say, it'd be really cool to import calendars for, our guilds and our combat separately. You could say, here's the guild calendar, here's the combat calendar, and then you can group them to say, here's the overall calendar. I know for Vindheim, let's see if I can find it. Oops. Org, Vindheim. Nope. Oh, yeah. Yep, it's fine. Our Vindheim Webminister has been playing with this feature at the regional level to create a pretty cool display on here. Is that they have created grouped calendars for all of the fighter practices for the region, all of the populous activities like business meetings, things like that. And so you can quickly filter and hover over to say, Namron has a business meeting on the 15th. Moon Shadow has a populous meeting on the 6th, which is pretty cool. This is still under construction, but it's a good example to see what something that you could potentially do on your site. All right, what else was I going to talk about? Redirection and FormCraft. Redirection is powerful. Usually when I create a site, I set this up automatically, but it's always good to check just in case it's not there. So this is something that comes in as a built-in site tool. So dashboard, tools, and then click on redirection. Redirection helps solve the problem of the name of the page changed and now that URL doesn't work anymore. Redirection allows you to say, when you see this URL, Bringelhead Queen's Champion, send people to this page. So if you renamed your events page, you can make sure there's a URL redirect so that if somebody types in the old name, they'll still get to the new page. This can be useful, for example, if you have like one page for fall event 2023, fall event 2024, fall event 2025, and you don't want to have folks type in all of those every single year. You can just set a redirect so that if folks type in /fall event, it'll take them to whatever the current year is, and you can just update that as you go. Super powerful, super useful, and helps avoid the problem of that page doesn't exist, which is usually frustrating and turns people away from your sites. And then the last useful plugin I'm going to talk about is FormCraft. This is a highly customizable plugin that lets you make forms that you can use custom logic on, and that's really where this thing is the most powerful. So for example, I'm actually going to go to the Ansteorra site. Actually, no, I'm going to go to our Seneschal site because that's where our officer application form is. So you can see the logic that's running behind that guy. FormCraft. Application for Office. So with this plugin, it gives you a what you see is what you get kind of editor for the form. So this just kind of body here in the middle is the form that you see. Now, normally, if you've applied for the office, it did not look this cluttered, because a lot of these, you can see the little eyeball with a slash through it, are hidden fields that I've put in here. For any given field, you can click on it and go away. It gives you the option to say, is it required? Is it hidden when the page loads? And you can put in all sorts of other custom options in there. If you click on it again, that will go away. But the really cool thing about this plugin, is why I like it, is you can add in custom logic. So if the field position type is equal to local, then it's going to show the field's local group. So what does that look like? SEA group city, position type, local, regional, kingdom. So that logic says if they select local, then they'll get to see this field that says local group. Similar logic, if they select region, then this region picker shows up. Kingdom, I don't think anything shows up. And same sort of things, go back to that logic. With this form, for example, if the local group selected contains Cheminoir, then an email gets sent to the Seneschal of Cheminoir, as well as the Baron and Baroness of Northkeep. Scroll down, let's find another one. You can see local group Namron goes to the Seneschal of Namron, as well as the Baron and Baroness of Namron. And so this is custom logic to try and make sure that all the officers who need to be aware of officer applications actually get notified, and that we're not sending them to like everybody en masse. So it's a neat little plugin if you need to do custom forms. It's a little bit tedious to customize. So like if you're doing like a quick thing to say, hey, kind of, sign up for my class, this is probably a little too beefy. Basically, the effort involved with making the form is probably too high. And so for something like that, I'd probably recommend doing Google Forms for like quick and easy things. This interface is a little bit more complex, lets you do more complex things, but you don't necessarily need that kind of heft all the time. And as with anything, I'm mentioning these today, but if there's anything that we need to go in more detail on, I'm very happy to jump in meetings. I'm very happy to like host a class if folks want to. And this is kind of a reach out to me and let me know what you need, if you need more than what I'm covering here today.